It feels like 100 years ago since I gave my maiden speech in this Parliament in May 2016. As with most maiden speeches, as is tradition, I spoke about the great beauty of my area, but also the local issues that local people face on a daily basis. But specifically and unapologetically, I addressed the issue of connectivity. Connectivity, strong transport links to our communities, and yes, that includes our island communities. Sadly, Presiding Officer, since that speech, things have gone from bad to worse for our island communities, and a situation best summed up in the BBC programme that we speak of today, a programme which I think finally gave the wider public visibility of a situation that has played out in this building for many years already. It truly is a dire situation that our islanders are in. What am I talking about? Ferries. Ferries, ferries, and then some more ferries. Did I mention ferries? And I hope I make that clear enough for you, Mr Wishart, if you're tweeting about today's proceedings. We make no apologies for raising the issue of ferries in our debating time. And frankly, it's shameful the government doesn't do it more. I don't need to repeat the endless conversation about what is simply a murkiness around the awarding of these contracts to Ferguson. But I will note one thing, and that's Mr Swinney, the Deputy First Minister, was very keen in the media to stress that not a single government minister put a single ounce of pressure to anyone in CMAL to award this contract to Ferguson. He made that claim, and I hope it's true, but it does beg the question that if it transpires that this award process was irregular, improper, or even illegal, then the truth must emerge, Mr Swinney. The simple question is, who was driving all of this? Who was really in charge in calling the shots and decision-making? Because all we've had so far is endless buck-passing, endless excuse-making and endless finger-pointing. Not a single head has rolled for any of this, and it's a scandal. Presiding Officer, this was a private sector company. The police would have been called yonks ago. It's unbelievable that no one has sought to get to the truth of this. And the whole country heard last night what our islanders have known for a very long time, what ferry failures look like in real life. And I say to Mr McLennan, who said it's been a tough few years for our islands. Yes, it has. I'm going to nominate him for award of Understatement of the Year at tonight's Holyrood Awards, because this is what tough looks like, Mr McLennan. Tough means businesses factoring in cash flow problems, writing off the bottom line in their P&L because of ferry problems. Tough is the young student on Iona losing up to a third of his schooling because of ferry problems. Tough is the ferry group who had to beg their community to fund an investigatory feasibility study for a vessel that they had to find themselves, only to be knocked back by government agencies. That's what tough looks like for our island communities. And it's no surprise why, because the average age of a CAMAC vessel is 24 years. Is it any wonder we've ended up here? Let me say to Ms Roddock about statistics. On the Arran route, there were 373 delayed sailings in the whole of 2007. By July of this year, halfway through the year, that number had tripled already. The number of technical faults unrelated to weather, Mr Swinney, are up 81% in the last 4 years alone. All of this comes at a cost, a financial cost, an operational cost, and as we hear too often, human cost. Now, it was the SNP's 2007 manifesto which promised a fairer deal for our islands. A repeated manifesto promise in 2011, where they stated to the voters, elect us and we will place the needs of our island communities at the very centre of the government's agenda. What a shallow promise that turned out to be. And then what about the flagship blueprint for ferries in 2012, the Scottish Ferry Services Plan, where Keith Brown proclaimed, "We are fully committed to delivering first-class sustainable services to our communities, stimulating social and economic growth right across Scotland." That plan included 6 new ferries. They haven't even delivered 2. 10 years on from that plan. 10 years on, there's no new plan, nor even any hint of one. I would say Project Neptune, yes, of course it's welcome, but it focuses on the governance structures. What it is not, however, is a comprehensive ferry replacement and procurement plan. It's still missing. Hulls 801 and 802, yes, they may eventually come into service, but that's 2 vessels. Just 2, and 16 of CalMac's vessels are over 25 years old. We've learned today, just as we're speaking, that there's even more slippage to that programme, and there remains significant risk, more delays, potentially more costs, and in an ironic twist of fate, the reality which many of us actually warned about is that the Glen Sannox may only sail on one single fuel. The so-called LNG dual fuel model, the green solution to marine transport, and the cause of so many problems in the ferry building process might not even be used. Let's go back to that 2012 plan from the centre benches. There will always be sufficient capacity on routes to meet demand, they promise. Well, what a joke that is, because when one boat breaks down, they take one from another route. They take it from one island and give it to another, pitting island against island. It's no wonder that the Iron Ferry Action Group described this as the island wheel of misfortune, because they and many others are genuinely worried about this forthcoming winter. There's a disgraceful inevitability about it. They're staring down the barrel of this ageing fleet, of a fleet which is breaking down and letting them down. Last winter, entire routes cancelled, travellers stranded, people genuinely struggling for supplies, medical appointments missed, misery, it went on, and this year's CalMax winter timetable is also late. It is that lack of consultation and a lack of listening that has got us to where we are today. We are listening to communities, and they are saying what a disastrous mess your government has made of the ferry network, and you should be ashamed. And Minister, don't get me wrong,
members, Mr Greene, please resume your seat for a second. Members, could I please ask that there not be shouting across the chamber? Mr Greene, please continue. The
current Transport Minister is the 5th such minister in so many years, and of course wasn't responsible for those decisions, but must take accountability and responsibility for the actions of her government, because no one else seems to be doing it. The lads in Port Glasgow summed it up nicely in the Yard. They on the telly last night said to the nation, it's never been about the workforce, it's all about the leadership. Well, I agree, and that starts with leadership, and it starts with political leadership. And what we've seen today is very little of that. No leadership and no accountability. That has to change, Presiding Officer, and it has to change now.
Thank you.